Welcome to the Defence Connect podcast, Australia's leading voice in national security and defence industry intelligence, direct from the nation's top policy and business experts.
G'day everybody, Steve Kuper here at Defence Connect. I hope you're well, and we are back for another Defence Connect podcast. That will be a video podcast. It's now our new normal, and I am, of course, joined by our gentle giant, Rob Dougherty.
Hey.
And the rose amongst the thorns, Bethany Alvaro.
Hello.
Guys, how are you?
Great.
Yeah, good. We did
Chilling.
a bit of a swap around.
Yeah.
Change the desk around. Maybe that can be a rotating thing.
Oh, true.
Yeah, we'll all move our spots. Yeah. It's been a busy week for defence and national security. And
good.
What's the standout for you, Rob?
Standout this week. Some of the, I said there wasn't a lot at SHOT Show the other week, but there's stuff that sort of continues to leak out.
Oh, you're backflipping.
And one of the ones I saw during the week was a shortened version of the M7 had sort of come out.
Yeah.
An M7 carbine.
Is this the one that Grand Thumb was testing?
It could be the same one, but the most important thing that came out of that was that they said, the rep said, this thing's more accurate than the long version, that the standard version. I don't know how that works, but
Yeah, the physics of that doesn't quite.
But I like the idea of a carbine. You know, when you go into that military history of, carbines and long rifles, people had carbines for horseback sort of fighting and things like that. They're just a bit cooler. They're shorter and, different muzzles and things, and they're a bit cooler. Yeah. So.
Hey, there's precedent. There was the M16 that was evolved into the M4, and look at how well that carbine has
revolutionized it.
Performed.
Really.
Yeah. And Bethany, how about you?
I kind of thought that aid to Afghanistan was a good thing, but we can talk about that one later.
Well, that is one of our topics today.
I thought that was important news for this week.
Yeah, and well, why don't we kick off with the Ferra Engineering has just struck a deal with Boeing to support the delivery of the high altitude anti-submarine warfare weapon capability, the Hawk, to be deployed from the P-8s.
Yeah, so they've had a lot of contracts before, so this is sort of just adding to it. They've already made a lot of the components for the MQ-28 Ghost Bat, the
Horrible
F-18 Super Hornet, and the Poseidons and stuff. So it's just a good, adding to the contracts. So it's good for Boeing because they're part of the global supply chain program. So it's more Australian businesses getting out there and working with the big companies on the big events. So, yeah.
You know how you can tell Ferra Engineering is doing well?
They've got protesters out
A
the
lot of protests. A lot of protests. Yeah, but
they are a fantastic business in the outskirts of Melbourne.
It's Melbourne.
Yeah, they do. Unsurprisingly,
cool.
They do very good work down there in Melbourne. Regardless of whether or not the protesters think so or not, but that is good news to see another Australian business. Or a repeat Australian business being further entrenched in the global supply chain program. So that's fantastic news.
The just on that as well, I thought this idea that you have a glide kit basically for your Mark 24 torpedoes from the P-8. I feel like this is a way of basically avoiding a bit of conflict. You can deploy this thing from further away or for a higher altitude. Theoretically, right?
What do you mean by avoid conflict?
So it's a longer distance to engagement. This is, you use your P-8 for anti-submarine, right?
Well, yeah, and maritime patrol. But if you're deploying it, how would that make conflict less likely?
Because you can send this glide kit out from a further distance away. You're not engaged. It's not a direct engagement. You're kind of just dropping it off and then flying away. It doesn't make it less likely, but it's more protective. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, all right. I'm not
higher up and further away.
I'm not following not following, but we can discuss that one offline.
I mean, let's use
It's
example.
in the name, high altitude.
Yeah,
From a high altitude.
From an example, let's use the torpedo that they use from Seahawks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They just shoot the torpedo out and it runs for however long it runs. But if you're using a glide kit, not only do you have that run distance of the torpedo, but you have the drop distance of the glide
Do you
kit
mean
is
hang on?
massive.
Do you
Is a lot.
mean it's got a better standoff range so that
That's
the
right.
crews are safer?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
yeah.
glad we cleared that up because it was going to play chaos with my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you mean it's got a better standoff range? All right.
Yeah. You just dump them out and fly away, basically.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm following now. Sorry, I'm very sleep deprived at the moment. Rob, EOS, after much toing and froing and speculation about whether or not they were going to pick up and move offshore, which is, quite frankly, it is abhorrent that the Australian government have let EOS go offshore.
To get to this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk us through this, because there was rumours that they were going to set up shop in Europe to capitalise on that market, but it looks like they may, in fact, be pivoting to a middle ground in the Middle East. No pun intended.
Well,
There's a lot of angles to this, and I think a big part of this is EOS's market in Ukraine and in Europe has been massive. You know, you can see their sales through the US Department of Defense into Ukraine. They were able to fit counter-drone stuff there, and they had some press conference-y sort of stuff here with Miles and Conroy and a few of the leaders coming out and saying, oh, look at this great capability. But as far as I'm aware, that capability has never been funded or utilised or ordered through the Australian Department of Defence that I know of. I stand to be corrected on this, but even most recently with the Australian government announcing that it's got a panel to advise on counter UAS.
As part of Land 156.
Yeah.
Yeah.
EOS isn't on that list. There's 20 other companies that are on that list. EOS isn't on there. And so this idea that they could move, it was a big surprise, but kind of wasn't really in a way, because I felt like the investment's been lacking, I guess. Yeah. The most recent news from EOS, they've signed a teaming agreement with Milrem Robotics, which is in that middle ground of the UAE. It's in the Middle East. Milrem's a big manufacturer of robotics, and they're probably going to end up with maybe some of the NATO contracts. So that's a good
They
place
made
to
some
be.
pretty impressive UGVs from memory.
Probably world leading. Yeah. Very impressive.
And again, it's a shame that EOS are being, I guess, forced is probably the best descriptor to
I don't know what happened there, but from what I can see, they're kind of frozen out of the market a bit here.
And look, if anybody wants to come on and correct the
talk to
record,
us.
please reach out to us at editor@defenceconnect.com.au, or you can email either one, any of us really. We'd be more than happy to have a chat.
Send us your hate mail.
Yep.
Send that to Steve.
No, send that to Liam. Yeah, all hate mail to liam.garman@momentummedia.com.au. That brings us to the next one. Speaking of a fire sale, Defence Estate Audit has revealed that 68 sites will be either fully or partially divested as a result of the Defence Estate report.
Yeah, so this is sort of liquidating a lot of the military assets that are considered to be defunct, and they're taking up maintenance costs, etc. They haven't been maintained properly. They're not going to be able to be used efficiently. That's the idea. That's what the report is saying. I think over time we'll come out and we'll see some of these sites being questioned. Certainly from what I've heard, Victoria Barracks, I believe, in
Sydney. Yep. Beautiful.
Seems to be
building.
well maintained. I mean, I don't know why you would want to divest something like that, but the real estate cash is certainly there. Yeah.
Well, I was reading that there's speculation it'll be worth about $800 to $1 billion in and of itself.
Wow.
There is obviously the heritage component there that is that adds some added complexity, and for anybody who is from Sydney, they no doubt have been past Victoria Barracks there on Oxford Street in Paddington. It's beautiful part of the world. And then HMAS Penguin will be partially divested alongside RAF Williams in Laverton in Victoria and Warradale Barracks in South Australia.
And there's two I think there's two as well in WA, pretty significant sort of ones. Can't remember quite what they are.
Lewin Barracks, maybe?
Yeah, might be. Yeah.
In Perth.
Yeah, but perhaps, this is a way to reinvest some of that defence cash. Doesn't look like we're going to get a defence GDP defence spend increase over the next couple of years. So,
well, wait and see. We've got 2026 National Defence Strategy coming out and the updated Integrated Investment Program, which I'm hearing is evolutionary, not revolutionary, but we shall see how that plays out. And I know the government has said that they will.
That last budget was out to 2028, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they did say that they would iteratively
increase.
Amend and update their spending calculations based on the strategic circumstances, which I'm told repeatedly are the most complex and dangerous since the Second World War.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Told that reliably.
Wow.
Yeah. Feels pretty dangerous at the minute.
Yeah.
What's happening.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, that brings us to the first of our big issues that are no doubt going to cause some consternation and a bit of lively debate. Bethany, 50 million in humanitarian support to Afghanistan.
Yeah, so the package was announced by Penny Wong, I'm pretty sure. So it will be delivered to the World Food Programme and the UN Office for Coordination of Human Rights Affairs, Afghanistan Humanitarian Fund. Well,
they really need a simpler name for that.
Yeah, honestly. So obviously they're still run by the Taliban and have been for
since 2021?
2021,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, who can forget that footage of people dropping from the belly of a C-17?
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I remember when that happened. I was in year 11. I remember it was everyone was like, ooh. Anyway.
I remember when September 11 happened.
I wasn't born.
Oh,
anyway.
God. It's making both of us feel old, isn't it, Rob?
That was a bit too much of a reality check there.
The humanitarian support will bring the total since 2021 to $310 million.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
But a lot of people are suffering, Women don't have education there. They can't go out in public freely, and these people need support. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Haven't we learnt that trying to change people's culture and attitudes is costly and ineffective?
Well, they definitely learned that in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But you can't just give up on other people.
I think that's the way the world's kind of going at the minute. I mean, this is a US perspective, but at the moment, it's kind of like you just let people go, basically.
I'm a big believer in the statement of charity begins at home. You should be looking after your own people before you start looking after everybody else.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I don't know if it's right necessarily for a country that has a lot of access to just turn a blind eye to these issues that are affecting millions of people.
We do that every day.
And I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
So
we do that every day with a whole host of nations.
Yeah.
There might be some hangover with this as well. With Afghanistan, obviously, there's a lot of history there with the ADF. There was a lot of alleged war crimes and stuff in there. Yeah. And there was funding set out through the Australian government to basically, is it called repatriation? But to basically kind of
mend.
You mean reparations?
Reparation type thing, yep. And I wonder if this is a flow on of that. And they're saying, well, we've got to still give assistance. There were some of the issues there may have come from the Australian Defence Force, etc. Personally, I'm not with that statement, but I've got to think that that's got to be related here.
Yeah, that's not a bad...
I mean, I don't think that we should just be like an open wallet. I don't think that we just need to be giving money away everywhere. But I don't think that
money, please.
Well, I don't think it's I don't know. I just feel like I know we've said this before, but I think that there should be more of an empathetic lens. I know, like, you need to be realistic, but there are also people involved in these situations right now that don't want to be there. So.
Yeah. And when it's up to the UN to kind of make sure that this money goes to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
let's
worst
wait and
case
see whether that
scenario,
happens.
That's
the worst case scenario is it goes through the World Food Program, etc., and it goes straight to the Taliban government. That's not a great situation.
But people have been trying to, how do I put this delicately? People have been trying to, quote unquote, civilize Afghanistan for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Thousands,
you reckon?
Yeah. Alexander the Great conquered Afghanistan. There's people there who share genetic lineage with Greeks.
Wow.
One of his wives was Afghani.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And one of his many wives. He also built an Alexandria in Afghanistan, or attempted to. Yeah.
Wow.
So all of the great empires of history have attempted to, quote unquote, civilize Afghanistan. At some points, you just kind of cut your losses and say, okay. Well, like, how many times do we have to be taught the lesson?
Is it to, like, civilize? I feel like it's more to, like, provide food and aid for the people that are suffering rather than, like, change their culture. Isn't that what the money would be doing?
Well, in this instance, going through the World Food Program.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, if people are suffering, to your point, like, where do we draw the line of intervening?
I don't know. I'm happy I'm not making that decision because that would be hard.
That's the US decision, I guess. There.
Well, it's the UN's decision, right?
Yeah. An interesting anecdote from this whole Afghanistan thing. I was talking to a senior army leadership who's been on the podcast before, and he was saying when he was stationed there, they had communications that they were intercepting, and some of the communications basically were calling Allied forces the Russians or the Soviets, because the distinction between the two occupying forces is just not there. It wasn't there for the Afghani fighters. It was like it's the same people. It's just another enemy that had come along. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that brings us to a opinion piece that you have penned, Bethany.
Yes.
Around the ongoing issues with martial law in the US. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Hit me with it.
Okay, basically to preface this, and I wrote about this in my article as well, I don't think martial law is going to happen. Like, I don't think they're at that point. But I thought it was interesting to just like look into it because I feel like it's one of those terms that it gets kind of thrown around, but it's not always defined as much. And then when you have people...
Well, you could argue that during COVID, Australia was under martial law.
That's a bit of a stretch, I think.
Well, no, you could
How?
theoretically.
It wasn't formalised.
It wasn't formalised, but the ADF was called out to help police do roadblocks in between the states. My brother-in-law was deployed down to the New South Wales Victorian border to help enforce the travel bans. The ADF were deployed to guard hotels and support that sort of operation. You could. Yeah, it's a long bow to draw, but it could theoretically fit under because it is an enforcement action, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how that works. You know, if someone escapes one of the COVID hotels, do they just shoot them? Or
well, hey, if you're in one of the COVID,
I feel like that's the wrong action there.
If you were one of the security guards in the COVID hotels in Victoria, I don't think you'd be wanting anybody to get out. They were having a great time.
Yeah, well,
in America, it's a bit different.
I took a US lens on this, but so on Truth Social, Trump said, if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only doing their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act. So that's what he said like 2 weeks ago. I mean, there's a lot in that statement alone that I think can be, laws aren't being disobeyed. And
well, they are.
How are the politicians of Minnesota are not obeying the law.
Well, they're not enforcing the state boundaries. They're allowing illegal immigrants to be harboured in the confines of the state of Minnesota. Therefore, they are in breach of the national sovereignty, and they're in breach of they are legally bound to maintain the sovereignty and the security of the borders.
Yeah, but as we've seen a lot of the time, people who are going through the processes of getting citizenship are the ones being arrested. They're doing things the right way. Yes, they came there illegally, but they're trying to get there. And the law says that they can try to be a citizen and go through the processes.
Yeah,
which
but
is what's
not
happening.
illegally. Not once they've illegally crossed the border.
I don't know.
And that's why I guarantee you that is why Tim Walz has resigned. Has said he won't recontest the election because he and Trump have had a conversation and he was told, read the relevant constitutional amendments and you will see that you are in breach of your obligations to help secure the border, and therefore what you are doing by riling up these...
How is he riling them up, though?
Well, he's out there saying that, you need to... these people need to be kicked off our streets and...
When they're shooting civilians, yeah. I don't see
Well, I'm not a big fan of being run over either.
I think there's a little bit of like that emotive political sort of stuff here, but from a base level, if you're talking about just enforcing the law, I imagine in the US, you probably can't, assault or blockade public officials. In this case, ICE are probably public officials.
They
get
are.
shot for it, get surrounded by 12 people and get shot 10 times.
Who was shot 10 times?
Alex Pretty.
But
He was shot multiple times. It was not just one.
At the most basic level, if you're a police officer, you can't really be blockaded or hindered by civilian. That I would think that would be against the law.
Yeah,
Like,
probably.
You
But when
can't
That's up
interfere
to
with
Minnesota
but saying that people that are
officials
protesting
to
are
make sure that doesn't happen. To basically be like, you got to let them do their business because they're a public official.
Well, you can't interfere with the...
Aside from all the political stuff,
Yeah.
immigration stuff, just at the most basic level.
well, I think calling people that are protesting professional agitators and insurrectionists
they
is
are.
a bit of a stretch.
They are. They are interfering with the lawful application of
What about
immigration
at the
law.
protests that are happening and journalists are being arrested? 2 journalists were arrested
Who?
for reporting. Don Lemon and
Don Lemon was arrested for breaking and entering
he was
into
reporting.
a church.
He was reporting on them.
He was arrested for breaking and entering into a church.
Then why wasn't every other person there arrested? Why was it just the journalist that was reporting on the activities in the church? He wasn't the only one in there.
Well, I haven't got an answer for that, but he was arrested for breaking and entering.
Yeah, which is...
And it was a breaking and entering or trespassing. I think it might have been trespassing.
yeah, but he wasn't... Anyway, that's...
Brains
that's,
trust?
That's...
I'm checking now.
I know what you're saying, but he wasn't there breaking and entering. He was reporting on people that were already there.
He was charged with conspiracy to deprive rights and interfering with religious freedoms.
Oh, interesting.
Which
Very
is
interesting.
Interfering with religious rights.
religious freedoms.
Religious freedoms. Interesting.
I don't know. I think if you go to somewhere as a journalist, you should be able to report on it and not get arrested in America in 2026. That's insane.
Well,
And he wasn't the only one. There was an independent journalist as well. They went to her house and got her from her house.
what was
The same thing. She was reporting on the same event.
I think the issue here is that allegedly they were entering a church. And so once you go into that part, the US is probably different here.
Well,
but
the protesters were already in there.
But once
They just went in to report on it.
once they're there, that sort of religious freedom part becomes a very sticky issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that they, whether rightly or wrongly, they got caught up in that because the US is going to be pretty extreme on some of those religious issues. They've always been like that.
Yeah. Anyway, back to martial law. So it's not actually something that's in the Constitution.
So what is martial law in this context?
So martial law is basically a military governance that can be like, I guess deployed is the right word, when the civilian and government practices fail. So like if there's like social unrest, a natural disaster, and like they need some sort of like more authoritative force. Yeah. And that can, so all the laws are basically like done when they're in. They set the new laws. Well, they can't actually set laws, but they make the rules sort of thing. There's like curfews, media blackouts, and sometimes military tribunals, which isn't that common. It happened once in the Civil War. And then after that, the Supreme Court found that the Union like was not authoritative or what's the word? Authorized to
so they become
have the military tribunal.
Authority at the minute.
Yeah.
They're governing basically at a state level.
Yeah, so that's martial law. And then the difference between that and the Insurrection Act, which I think is 1807 or something like that. Yeah, 1807. The Insurrection Act is like a presidential right that they can employ or deploy, I guess. And it's where they work with civilian agencies rather than as the agency. So like it's like the army can work with the police and the courts.
That's covered under the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, which is where federal law that prohibits federal military personnel from acting as law enforcement within the US, though there are exceptions, and they can serve in support of counter-drug operations and natural disasters, as you said.
Yeah.
And what they can be, like the whole purpose of that act is to prevent the military from being used to enforce domestic laws. However, in this instance, and that's usually the case when like the state governor, for example, would call in the National Guard to support like
whatever's happening.
Yeah, or like they did in, was it 93, the Rodney King riots?
92.
Yeah. To provide support to domestic law enforcement. So that's where that is
so we
the
think,
case.
We think this is going to blow over or it's going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's
well,
if
there was
point.
no martial law declared during the Summer of Love.
I mean,
and for
what was it needed there for? They weren't doing anything.
Which Summer of Love are you referring to? The 1970s?
Yeah.
No, I was referring to the Summer of Love in 2020, sorry, sleep deprivation, 2020 during the George Floyd riots where $2 billion worth of damage was done and, you know, they were quote unquote fiery but mostly peaceful. That's an oxymoron if ever I've heard one. But if they weren't called in, if the National Guard wasn't called in then, and I can't see them being
but people
called
weren't
in for
getting
this.
shot.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Not they weren't getting shot by 12 officers all at once or shot in the head while driving.
How many
by federal law enforcement?
I feel like this.
Yeah, what do you think?
I feel like this whole thing is going to really. We're due for a US election soon, aren't we? Is that this year?
midterms are due in October or November.
I feel like you want to really turn this thing around because this is this has the potential to hurt your election chances.
Yeah,
for either
100%.
side.
Yeah,
you know, Democrats. It could hurt them if it's not handled in, you know, if Trump comes out looking better because of this whole thing, because of this Insurrection Act sort of thing, you know, and with the ICE enforcement. But for Trump, it could look like some sort of police brutality campaign.
I mean,
imagine how bad that would look for an election.
Yeah.
Leading into
So at least 25 Americans were killed during the protests and political unrest in 2020.
But not by law enforcement, though.
There would have been some overlap. I'm just trying to. But what's worse?
No one should die. No one should die when they're protesting or having their beliefs, obviously.
What's worse? Being killed by a police officer or a law enforcement officer or being killed by your neighbour in the middle of a riot?
Yeah, but people aren't like out there shooting each other in protests.
And not always, but they sometimes are.
I don't know any example of when that happened in this example after the George Floyd thing.
There was plenty of that. That's why there were instances of vigilantism to protect property and
that
lives.
Kyle Rittenhouse
Kyle Rittenhouse, yeah.
probably. But I don't know if that was a protest. I'm not 100% sure what that thing was around.
A legal scholar at the University of Illinois, Stephen Schwinn, said he sort of agreed, said that it's probably not going to happen. The Insurrection Act isn't going to be called. He said the triggers are just not implicated. There's no rebellion. There's no insurrection. There's nothing even close to that. And moreover, to the extent that there is violence or unrest in Minneapolis, many would argue it's the federal government's own doing, which I agree with.
I would say he should go and have a look at downtown Chicago and look in his own backyard before he starts throwing around.
But that's the issue. It's not what people are protesting. I mean, obviously people are protesting ICE in general, but I think it's all blown up heaps because 2 US American citizens were shot and killed.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but don't put yourself in the position where you're going to be shot.
Protesting and putting your rights is not putting yourself in a position to be shot.
Showing up to a protest with a firearm.
He had open carry. If it was a right-wing person, if it was a Republican.
He did not.
Yes, he did.
He did not have his government-issued ID on him.
Well,
therefore,
he was allowed...
in breach. No, you're only allowed open carry.
Well, then aren't all of the ICE officers who aren't identifying themselves, showing their warrants, aren't they in breach of their policy too?
No, they would have their formal ID.
They never say it though. They never identify themselves.
They don't have to identify themselves.
If a civilian is asking a law enforcement officer to identify themselves, I feel like I think you probably
feel
would.
like.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't checked. I don't know the law. I'm not a US law, but I feel like
any American law experts, please feel free to come on and
chime in.
So it says he was licensed to carry and open carry and is legal in Minnesota.
But he didn't have his ID on him.
Therefore,
he's in breach of his obligations under the open carry.
That doesn't mean he didn't pull his gun on anyone.
Well,
he was filming with his phone, not holding his gun.
I've seen footage of him attacking ICE vehicles and spitting on.
That was
ICE
the
officers.
week before. I don't think that you should be spitting on people, obviously, or attacking people. But that was the week before. That wasn't when he was shot.
Well, let's also have a look at the firearm that he was carrying. There's some issues with that going off.
Doesn't say anything about.
His gun didn't go off.
No. But there's very well-known issues with that type of gun going off without actually...
He was shot by police officers, not police officers, ICE officers. You can see it in the video.
Yeah. I'm not... Hey, look, all I'm saying is don't go down to a riot carrying a firearm.
It wasn't a riot.
And obey...
It wasn't a riot.
Obey the instructions of the law enforcement officers.
He was standing to the side helping a woman who was pushed by ICE. You can see it in the video. There's no disputing that. That's clear footage. Mm-hmm. He was helping a woman on the side. He wasn't even near where the arrest was happening. Well, not arrest, I don't know what they call it. Like they were taking someone who was an immigrant. He wasn't even there. He was on the other side of the road helping someone that was pushed by an ICE officer. And then that's when they all swarmed him and shot him multiple times.
All right. We'll agree to disagree. I don't think anybody should be killed while protesting.
No, exactly.
But if you're going to play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
I don't agree with that. I don't think martial law is going to happen, though. That's...
Good. And just to clarify, Alex Preddy, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara stated that Preddy was believed to be a lawful gun owner with valid permit to carry.
But did he have it on himself? That's it. You've got to carry it like your driver's license.
Well, I haven't heard anything about that. And if the Minneapolis police is saying that he was valid to carry it, I feel like
I don't have anything on that part.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah.
That's a lot more nuanced.
It is, as with all of these things, it is a lot more nuanced. And that brings me to the final story of the week, and that is, what does it take to be a serious middle power?
Oh.
There's been a lot of conversation now, particularly in the last couple of years, around what constitutes a serious middle power and whether or not Australia meets that criteria anymore. And I would argue that we don't, on the real tangible hard power terms, which is your economy and your military capability. You're diplomatic and your cultural influence and all of those soft power things do have a role to play. But as we head into a world of increasing competition, it's your economy and your military that's going to...
Is that compared, like when you say a small, a medium, and like a large power, I guess?
Yeah, great power.
Great power, yeah. Is that compared, like, a medium power's economy to a great power's economy? Or is it, like, in reference to their own... Okay.
There's a scale.
Yeah.
And that's part of the conversation that's ongoing. And,
It's probably a bit of a bell curve. You know, you have most countries are not there, and then there's fewer and fewer as you go up power.
And that's exactly right. Yeah, it is like that.
I'd have to wonder if you don't have your own, you know, automotive manufacturing and things like that, some of those have got to be key,
like
players,
cut-off points.
To be a middle power. Like, if you don't manufacture your own vehicles,
what about your own pharmaceuticals?
There's probably a line there where you go, you don't have all of the parts that you need to be a middle power.
Yeah. And then it comes down to your actual capacity to project power away from your borders. Yeah. And, you know, I would argue that Australia falls dramatically short on all of those factors.
You don't think we have influence? I mean, obviously not as big as like America or anything, but any?
I'm not saying we don't have any influence. Yeah. I'm saying that we overestimate our influence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Probably good supporting power. If someone else, one of the larger powers goes...
we're like the sidelines.
You can do it. Remember the You Can Do It guy from the Rob Schneider movies? Yeah. You're probably way too young to understand that. But there was always and they alternated between him and Adam Sandler in Rob Schneider movies.
Yeah.
It was Adam Sandler, and in Adam Sandler movies it was Rob Schneider, and it was always You can do it.
Yeah. The just that part of that influence around our own sphere. I mean, we have some influence with smaller countries like PNG and different places, but
that's a very shallow pool to be comparing it to.
Yeah.
But there's not, I wouldn't say there's a lot of direct influence with some of the bigger powers in our area, like Indonesia. Or India and things like that.
I mean, I feel like when you think of like a major Western nation, though, like Australia's high on the list. Do you not think so?
No, I don't think so at all. No.
I think there's big tourism value there, and people are like, it might be a good place to live. I don't think militarily. I don't think
in terms of hard power.
Yeah.
You know, but saying that, I don't think the United Kingdom is a middle power.
That's a crazy call, I think.
Yeah.
But
I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got the nuclear submarines. You were saying their maintenance and stuff is not sovereign, but
I don't think the UK counts as a middle power.
Huh.
And France is kind of arguably one.
Haven't they always been one though?
Yeah, they kind of it's a weird
they certainly produce a lot of military equipment.
Yeah. But they have their own very
capacity.
They also have very significant
social,
domestic issues that they have to sort out beforehand.
I agree.
Probably something along this line that I have seen within the last week or two. We talked about the Mark Carney speech where he was saying middle powers have got to come together. The rupture of the rules-based order, how that was a lie.
Yeah.
You said over the last couple of weeks, most of that wording has changed with, say, France, Canada. I don't know about the UK. But Australia's wording is still the same. You know, we believe in the rules-based order and all this sort of stuff. I wonder how long that's going to take to kind of shift. I'd be interested to see.
Knowing the Australian attitude, right up until it slaps us in the face.
Right up until outbreak of war.
Yeah, and then we'll go, bugger.
Yeah.
We should have done more.
Even in the wording of the most recent I think it was PNG.
Or Timor-Leste.
Yes,
Timor-Leste.
Yeah, their agreement, rules-based order. Everywhere you look. Yep.
I think there's an element to which this government is kind of sitting there with its fingers in the ears going, la, 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 can't hear you, while the rest of the world's in a dumpster
So what do you
fire.
think we should do to not be like that?
That's a conversation that you need to have with the Australian people. And I think you need to be very clear and very very clear-eyed in what the outcomes are.
Yeah.
If
you don't
step up
Yeah.
and put our own interests first. That's not to say that it has to be a zero-sum game. We're not going to cut our nose off to spite our face, but we need to be far more inward-looking for the time being to make sure that we are capable of acting in our own interests.
And I think there's already a trend where most countries are saying we want to be more self-sufficient. We want to have our own manufacturing. Certainly the US is doing that on a wholesale plus tariffs. But even if you look at, say Indonesia, which is next door, what they're looking at is education of their people, self-sufficiency of food and other, key facilities. Yeah.
Are we self-sufficient on food?
I think we probably
Mostly?
would be.
It's at the high level, yes, but as you get more granular, no, because what happens is in the event of a shock that particularly impacts sea lines of communication, you don't get the raw inputs, particularly liquid fuels, which then slows down significantly agriculture. In terms of not only the harvesting, but also your inputs into fertilizer, pesticides, and things like that. So yes, but no.
Yeah.
And it's more towards the no side than we are the yes side, which is, rather concerning.
Yeah.
Remember during COVID how quickly we reverted to barbarism in the Woolies aisles over
That was
toilet
insane.
roll.
That was ridiculous.
On that level, it makes more sense. So the economy is geared towards exporting food. It's not geared towards producing food for the Australian public.
Yeah, we're kind of an afterthought.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah.
Speaking of work, we better get back to it. Bethany, Rob,
An exciting debate again.
as always. For people who want to stay up to date with the latest in defence and defence industry, head over to defenceconnect.com.au, or you can find us on all your social media outlets, bar TikTok. Until next time, bye-bye.
See you
Bye.
then.